Brandon, why don't you tell us a little bit about Paladins? See, I did the same thing.
Yeah. Well, Marty started it. Marty started singing Cranberries.
I started the Cranberries. Founding member of the Cranberries.
Yes, he did. I'd love to see that band picture. Just you're off in the corner.
Shout out to Ireland.
Somebody please Photoshop a black and white picture of Marty into a Cranberries album cover.
Please. Please.
Just really nondescript, like kind of in the corner, hanging out. Like maybe he just walked into the room.
I feel like I would have been like 6 when that album came out.
Probably.
Or 8.
Or 8, yeah.
Inside jokes. So
you saw Paladins.
I did.
That's a game that it's from Hi-Res Studios, who did Smite and
Tribes of Sand and Global Agenda.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about it outside. Like, you went to Atlanta and you saw it. And we have like 40,000 hours of video on the site about this game, and I don't know anything about it still.
Captured a bunch of coverage. So yeah, basically Paladins is sort of Hi-Res Studios' next venture, right? Like they hit it big with Smite. Smite's over 10 million players now, doing real well for itself, and they thought we would like to do a first-person shooter, sort of sci-fi fantasy based around one of the game mode premises of Smite is you walk this giant siege engine towards the enemy base and then get through the layers of the base, crack the vault, and you win, right?
How you feeling about all this, Marty?
I'm interested in this. I'm on board right now.
All right.
Yeah. So at its core, what it is, it's a team-based shooter, right? So think Team Fortress 2. But it's sort of sci-fi fantasy, like a fantasy. They described it as like a fantasy game set 1,000 years in the future. So like magic and technology are sort of intertwined and all that good stuff. But the really interesting part about it is, it's not like a team-based shooter that you're used to. It's like everything's projectile fire. So like you actually have to dodge and weave around shots.
So it's like Smite.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it feels kind of Smitey, right?
Because everything in Smite, like even the right clicks are skill shots.
Yeah, to a degree. In the abilities as well, you can sort of dodge them. Some stuff is instant cast, but like it's a first-person shooter, and you're firing your gun and you're dodging the shots. But then there's also this really super interesting sort of card mechanic as well, whereas that harkens back to a MOBA, right? Like as you play a MOBA or Smite or Dota or whatever, and you're earning gold, you're buying items that increase your power. So like you increase in power, you accelerate as the game goes. And in Paladins, exact same way, except you're pulling cards. And so the cards do different things.
But cards are live? It's not like
you make a deck before the game with 15 cards, and then every time you level, you pull 3 cards and you choose the one you want.
Oh, okay.
But the catch is like the higher your level, the more powerful the card is. So on level 1, maybe you're like, oh, I don't want that card because I know a level 5 version of that card is just going to wreck everything.
Oh, interesting.
So
can you decline the card?
Yeah. Well, you have to choose a card, but you don't have to choose.
But then the other 2 go back into the deck.
Yeah, then the other 2 go back in the deck.
So it might be like, I know that my attack or magic damage that I would get buffed from these cards will be better later. So I'll just take the healing, the passive heal.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll my level 1, I'll take a slight boost to run speed, and then when level 5 comes around and it's the top tier version of that card, then you're like, well, now I want this, and it lets me crit 50%. Generally, no.
Okay.
Generally, you can only get like sort of cards. I don't remember if you can pull 2 of the same card, but from what I remember is the decks are fairly closely monitored, though you can build your own decks.
So that's interesting because then you're relying on both the luck of the draw and your faith. Like you were saying, like, okay, I know the card is in there that's better at a later level.
Yeah.
I'm going to decline this one in hopes that I get that one later.
And the thing is you don't just stop at 5. So like once you hit 5 and you get the strongest card you can, level 6 is another strongest version, and it replaces your first card that you took.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 15 card deck?
15 card deck, yeah.
And then do you have to earn those 15 cards before some way in the game to make the deck, or is there just like a list of cards and you make your 15?
So when I played it, it was real early. So I'm not exactly sure if they're going to, like, I assume they're going to start you with a recommended deck for every character. And then there will be ways to earn more cards, which they didn't really get into.
Oh, I wonder what that could be.
Yeah, right.
I wonder if they're going to charge for cards that are really good.
Yeah, they didn't really get into it, but I have a feeling there will be a way to earn more cards and buy more cards. If the Smite pricing model is anything, the way they sell Smite is going to be a way to purchase cards that you want. Card. Yeah, and then Hi-Res is actually really good about making like the best stuff earnable in game, and the stuff that you really like skins and mounts and whatever.
Yeah.
that's stuff that you can spend.
Also, everyone has a mount in that game.
Yeah,
that's
everyone
weird.
has a mount, yeah.
So you can just like start riding a horse around.
Yeah, so the maps are much bigger. Like every character's got 2 abilities, a movement ability, like a bomb and a gun that shoots blasty stuff, and then blasty stuff, and then a movement ability, and then the last one is a mount. It's not really an ability, but everyone has a mount. The maps are way open. Like none of this really corridor stuff. It's very much sort of big open area with like key points that you go and you fight over in like sort of a King of the Hill type game, and then the winner of the King of the Hill spawns a siege engine, which you walk towards their base. So there's like a meta game that starts the full meta game.
So it's definitely like you have to walk this thing down a lane, but how are the levels laid out? Like, does it feel like a shooter map?
No, it feels like a wide open map. It feels like I don't know if you guys are familiar with like World of Warcraft Battlegrounds areas.
Yeah.
Like God, I don't know, Arathi Basin or something, where it's just this big open area, and there are nodes that you capture. You know, the lumber mill and all of that stuff. This is the same way. There's the ruined city and the valley and the canyon, and you know. A King of the Hill node will randomly spawn in one of those. You go, you fight for it, you get it, and then you walk the cannon into their base, and you got to break through like 3 different levels of it.
Do you see or feel any tribes leftovers in there?
I was really looking forward.
No jetpack guy?
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Not so much?
Not a whole lot of that stuff. I was looking for it. I did get the tribes thing with like the projectiles, because it does feel like you're kind of, some characters are made to like sort of bounce around, and then some characters are made to fulfill a specific role, like not a tank role per se, but there's a guy with a shield that pops it out, and you can watch all this footage on the site right now. But there's a guy with a shield that like pops it out, and you know, he can soak up a ton of damage while you're capturing nodes. So,
So you've played some Black Ops 3, and like no matter what character you pick, you're almost always identical to the other players until you're using your ability for a little bit.
Yeah.
Is it like that in Paladins, or do you like? I'm
No.
the tank guy. Like I always feel like the tank guy.
Every character, and they have names. They are characters. It's not like tank, mage, healer kind of thing. They all have their own personalities, and they actually did a really good job about bringing those personalities to life, both you know, through the characters themselves and their abilities. But like each character has their own way to fire. Like one guy has a flamethrower. One guy has like a staff that shoots just a continuous laser. You know, one guy
Laser staff.
One guy like lobs grenades. One guy just has the chain gun. You know, so each character fires their own projectiles differently.
Yeah, that part of it reminds me of Battleborn a little bit. Just in terms of the characters having actual like personality and being like, oh, you're not just like nameless dude number 15, like you are this character.
Yeah, I think the term floating around the industry right now is like hero shooter.
Oh, yeah.
I think what it is.
The Hooter.
The Hooters.
Love it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And we love it so much.
We are seeing a move to that, so it'll be interesting to see how all these games sort of compete with each other next year.
Yeah.
Right?
I really, really hope that the cards don't become like a really scummy pay scheme thing, because there is a massive problem for potential for pay to win there.
Yep, there totally is. I can't speak to. It looked like there was a pretty robust number of cards anyway, and that since there is that random element in it, you know, people who make a better deck with these cards that they're given are going to have a better time anyway, rather than just loading a deck full of like super powered offensive cards. But you know, knowing playing Smite the way I do, and having played it for a long time, like I'm inclined to give Hi-Rez the benefit of the doubt, because Smite is a really, really like genuinely unintrusive free-to-play model.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So, I think it'll be okay, but it's still a ways out. So we'll have to
do you get the sense they have like similar competitive ambitions like they do with Smite, or is this more like Team Fortress 2, where it's like, it's fun, you can play it over there?
No, they want this to be an esport for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
Interesting.
Which, you know, I know
luck in an esport is just like so weird.
It is. To a degree, anytime you add RNG into like a hyper-competitive environment, there's always room for...
Right, like that team could be winning dominantly, and then somebody draws a card, and it's like, well, we can't do anything because he drew the card.
Then at the same time, look at like Magic the Gathering, right? Like there is a heavy RNG factor in that, and yet people say the way that you construct your decks before the match should factor in for RNG, right? Should factor in for that random element.
Yeah, it's like why you would... you know, put a certain number of a certain card in your deck.
Exactly.
Less or more land, depending on what you want to do.
100%, yeah. So I feel like it's the same thing here. Like, there's a way to always be viable depending on whatever you draw. You know?
Gotcha.
It's interesting. It's a super interesting premise, and it's kind of hard to explain until you actually see it in action.
Yeah, and we have a ton of footage. Like, go check it out on IGN.
I captured many hours of footage. So
you were gone for 2 days and came back with just a mountain of.
You came back with more than 48 hours.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I don't know if you did.
How does Atlanta work?
Good work.